All right, guys, so I think we're ready to start. As usual, I'm getting pretty nervous. I'm pretty sure that most of you know my name. Yeah, thank you. If you do not, my name is Mike Kilinek. I'm currently working as a director of the styling and design of Industrihansa, and I'm an ex-Autodesk, ex-Alias employee. This is the first time at the Autodesk University where I'm speaking not as an Autodesk employee. So I've got a privilege to speak more about the process rather than teaching you how to, press which button and move the mouse over a certain function to get some kind of a good continuity between the surfaces or make the nice sketch. So this time I will speak more about the process, and I will give you some real examples. But first of all, I was asked to introduce myself. It's not me. There's at least one item in this list which is not true. Well, this is me. This is me according to Facebook. Pretty cool guy riding the off-road car, jumping the ATVs, doing the 4,000 feet elevations. Yeah, Facebook. That makes you look better, actually. There's a bit of the true in all of those pictures. I love engines. I love any type, any kind of the vehicles. I love winter sports and mountains. And I'm totally keen on sketching as a part of the creative process. So this is really me. My background is I've studied the traditional visual art, and quite soon I've converted to product design and lately to car design. I was working for Skoda, which is the Volkswagen daughter company, shortly for Volkswagen in the Advanced Studio in Potsdam. And last 7 years I've spent with Alias/Autodesk as a kind of conceptual expert. So what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to give you 3 little cases. There are roughly 100 slides, no Excel sheets, no worries, just images, and I will try to speak as less as possible, but we will have to go quickly through those images. So I'm going to give you 3 examples how the process could be innovated. It's kind of interesting because we have the processes, we have the methods, and they're pretty well stable within the OEMs, within the productions. But I believe there are certain things we can do differently, better, or maybe even more playful. And this is the goal of this whole class. So I'm not going to have any live demonstration today, but there will be a lot of examples how we think, how we work. And I will start with the first case, which is designing the design team. Let's start with this. That's a subtitle, and I like that. I'll come to that back because this story has its beginning and it will have its end. When I was leaving Autodesk earlier this year, I got the offer to work for the Industrihansa and establish the brand new styling and design center. The Industrihansa is a big German company focusing mainly on the engineering services across the automotive, aviation, energy, and so on and so on. What is important, they've got some customers. They exist for almost 25 years, so there's a lot of relationships happening already. There's something to start this as a basement to start with. What is more important, there are almost 2,000 employees right now, all engineers. And that's an important part, because in that environment, I was asked to build the styling and design department. That means creative people, artists, left brains versus the right brains. Well, so what we do have here, Industrihansa, which didn't have any of those services in their portfolio before. It wasn't known for those services on the market, although we had something like 80 people working on the technical surfacing departments, which is somehow related to design and styling departments as well. So how to introduce the brand new team to the market, which is really picky. How to do it without going through individual portfolios and listing and introducing the whole team as a set of the individuals. No, it doesn't work like that. So we wanted to have something which will put everything under one roof and introduce the team itself. We found that the best way how to do it is introduce the skills and the mindset inside the studio through the process, through the story, how we actually create the things. And as far as our aim is about 80% to the automotive market. We already have some real projects, but I'm not allowed to speak about those. We have decided to show you the process of a concept car, creating a concept car. We will not go to the full-scale model in this presentation, But we will do a little bit of concept research and all around, and with some examples how innovative you can be through that process. So now that's the decision. We will build a car virtually. What kind of car? When you look at the segment, I mean, everyone is doing fantastic show cars. But we found one segment where it's not really that nice as you would expect. And it's the premium SUV market. I don't know if you have seen the latest Bentleys, Aston Martins as an SUV. You like, how many car designers are here? Did you work on one of those I've mentioned? All right. Which one? The Audi? The Lamborghini? The Ursus? Okay. So, I'm going to fight those. Fair enough. I mean, that's the premium market. Honestly, there's a perception of the SUV where it should be, what the product should be. Where's the honesty? I'm a big fan of the Land Rovers, Ranges. That's a premium SUV with a lot of honesty, purity in design. So we have picked that segment because we thought that would be easy to address it. So, how to tell the whole story, being successful telling that story. And we have decided that we will get our lesson from the best teachers ever, from the best storytellers ever, from Hollywood. Porsche, Aston Martin, I didn't say that, and the Bentley. All right, so this is the Hollywood part. So it was interesting to demonstrate that internally. All those engineers are like, oh, really? Designers were laughing because they got that was a joke. That was really a joke how to introduce the whole project. Hey, buddy. So we had to fight through internally, just explain them what kind of joke is that and what kind of game we are playing. That we are telling the story of creating something which is going to be a car. And we've picked a certain brand. And this brand is Tatra. Have you heard of Tatra? Anyone? This is one of the oldest car companies in the world. It's a Czechoslovakian brand. This beautiful, thank you. This beautiful thing in the middle, it's 1952. One piece only built. The Tatra is unfortunately not producing any passenger cars anymore. Unfortunately, because the heritage is pretty strong. And we will go through some reasons why the heritage is so strong. They are producing only the heavy trucks, specifically focusing on the ultimate terrain, ultimate off-road, as you can see on those 4-axis truck over there. So why the Tatra? Well, okay, here's that slide again. So why the Tatra, and what would be the goal? What would be the product? To understand the product, to understand where we are going, we need to know kind of key attributes, key values of that brand. And that's why I have this little slide here, because I love that movie. And it's a fantastic statement. That gives you a key attribute of this character. That's how he behaves, and that's why he behaves like that. These are his motivation. These are key attributes. So we had to find those attributes, those key values for that brand. So we went through this little car. That's the first one. That's a Tatra 77. It's the first serial-produced, truly aerodynamic car. This is the drag coefficient. Only few cars right now have that coefficient. It was 1935. 4. By the way, something for my American friends. It's got Hemi. 8-cylinder. So this was one of the first truly aerodynamic car mass produced. Really interesting, really cool car. A lot of technological parts, and then just losing my ability to speak English. Sorry, I'm not American, not English. You can hear that. And I'm here for 2 weeks, and I'm slowly losing my ability to speak English. So technology, it was really advanced. By the way, there are 2 important names here. Paul Jarret, the Zeppelin engineer, and Hans Lendvinka, the famous Porsche and Beetle designer, engineer. So this car was built and designed in Czech Republic / Czechoslovakia in 1934. That's a brilliant heritage. By the way, Jay Leno has one of those cars in his garage as well. What else? We have that tube frame, the central backbone spine of the whole car, that allows to move over difficult terrain like the example on the other side. Interestingly, even that car I was showing before is based on this tubular frame. So it was combining sort of the off-road abilities with the phenomenal efficiency based on the aerodynamic solution. So we have that off-road heritage. And that was one bit unfamous. From 50s, 60s, and 70s, those were the cars used by secret police in the former communistic bloc. So whenever you saw that car on the road, parking in front of your house, you knew you were in deep trouble. But it was the synonym of luxury in those days. It still is, by the way. If we will have time later on, I can show you a brilliant movie how they drive it over the mountains. In one day they're changing, from snow to mud, and fantastic, brilliant. Oh, it's on the YouTube as well. Let's go on. So I've started with 2 designers because the team was slowly being built. And interestingly, for every designer here, something obvious has happened. The first thing to do is to change the logo. So what they did, it's pretty appealing to me, and I like that. And it just confirms that every designer who starts to work for whatever it is, Bentley, Lambo, the first thing he wants to do, we need to change the logo. All right, next thing, the icon boards. This is something probably everyone in this room who is kind of involved in design process knows very well. You need to find out visual items that are linked to your project, and they will help you to define the form language. One of the attributes I want to point out is that little badge over there, I like brown. It's all linked to Dieter Rams, the famous German designer, known with his purity and honesty to design. Something what Apple is doing those days as well. And we love that purity because those cars, they were not too much decoration, they were just honest. And we like that. So we put those 4 attributes together. The off-road capabilities, together with aerodynamics. Almost sounds like a contradiction, but it's a solvable issue, and we will show you how we did that. Backbone frame, an interesting concept. I still think it could be viable those days as well. And the brown factor as a styling direction, showing us the need for purity and honesty. So this is the part everyone likes. I have been yesterday attending one of the classes. It was called Rockets, Robots, and Cars. Fantastic show, fantastic presentation. And I love how this designer was using the real elements and putting in a different context, painting over. And that's exactly what we're doing as well. This is the Daniel Simon's Tron vehicle. And one of my designers just has stolen one of the sorts of her wife and wrapped it over. And we find out interesting forms combined with the off-road functionality. So we, in one image, in one little example, we've got a combination of the aerodynamic shape and the off-road capability. I like that. We started sketching. This is something we always enjoy. We were playing with a lot of ideas. By the way, this is those sketches on the right side. They are the iPad sketches. I love the symmetry. I'm using the little pogo sketch. Today I've just learned that there's a pogo with the pressure sensitivity available. I need to get it. Analog stuff. Produce hundreds of sketches. I just don't want to spend too much time on it because this is the Autodesk event and we need to focus on digital tools sooner or later. So we started with some side views. These are really important because they help you to set the proportions, and also they help you to focus on the goals. And the purity, that brown factor in a form language, that was something I was considering as one of the most important. This is one of the initial sketches one of my designers did. There was another one which is using a little bit more soft forms. As you can see, I was really trying to get my team not making something too realistic in the beginning, just to have a lot of freedom expressing the form of the car with the SUV, within the SUV type of the segment, without the wheels, whatever. Just express as a sculpture. Express yourself with the sculpture. There's another one, a little bit soft form. And then we got the third designer in the house. He jumped after 2 months and he brought this idea. Interesting, but where the hell is that brown factor? Crazy, but you know, there were some ideas he came with. They were quite viable and we were working with them later on. Alias, sketchbook designer, all those things we really like to use in those phases. As well as polygonal modeling. You know, I'm a really big Alias fan. But I found myself that even working with Alias for maybe the last 15 years, I found the NURBS core really limiting from the point A. Because suddenly if you find yourself, how would I do that, you know, with the curves of the surface transition? And it suddenly limits you. That's why I really enjoy playing with Maya and 3ds Max in terms of the polygonal modeling or subdivision modeling, because that gives you a chance to play with the forms and proportions, even better than you would do with the clay. What is beautiful, you can spit out the STL model and get overnight a quarter scale or really small scale model just to judge the proportions and the shapes, the volumes. This whole model, this is like a 2.5 hour exercise. Really cool. You can be really that efficient. The beauty of polygon modeling is in its core. Basically, you can choose Maya or 3ds Max and you can't go wrong because the polygonal modeling is same everywhere. If you feel better with Maya, use Maya. If you like 3ds Max, you will be able to do exactly the same thing, maybe with 1 or 2 mouse clicks more or less. But it's your choice, and that's the beauty, because we can use that freedom of a tool choice. Mudbox, very cool stuff in a combination with Maya and 3ds Max. Once you start to build your models using the subdivision modeling technique, you can easily bring those data into Mudbox, because the topology of the polygons is so simple that you can play with those forms like sills and shoulder lines the way you really like and kind of mimic the analog approach. The same thing what would you do with clay, but of course in a more expensive way. So this is a really big money saver. All right, Alias again on the scene. I was trying to force the guys to express themselves in the form of the 3D tape drawing. Does anyone know what tape drawing is? Yeah, there are a couple of the people. Yeah, cool. For the others, tape drawing is basically a drawing of a car in 1:1, in most cases, using a black tapes, Scotch tapes, put on the white big board with a 100mm grid. This is the first moment where you can see the real size and the real proportions of the car. The human brain really cheats you. When you look at the screen, you will never get the size and the proportions of the car right until you put it on the Powerball or you make the tape drawing. On the other side, computers, they give you an advantage to build in a 3D tape drawing, something you can't do on the wall, on the paper. By the way, the technique is nothing new, just computer helped us to be a little bit faster. The old Italian masters, they used something called piano di forma, which was basically a side view, top view, front view, all linked together in 1:1. And this is something you can do in a computer. So one of my guys, really good Alias modeler and designer, he instantly started and jumped into Alias to build the model. And I forced him to forget about the surfaces. If you want to present me the Alias work, don't present the surfaces. I want you to go through a wireframe. And he built that image. I'm totally in love with it because it's pretty cool. It gives you an impression of the sculpture in the space, but it doesn't kind of distract you with the surface problems. So I like that. And with the Maya model and showcase and some details added with alias, we were able to present very quickly, within the 1 week of work, those kind of results. These are techniques known from media and entertainment processes. Pre-visualization, trying to get as much realistic result as soon as possible. So the whole body of the car, this is Maya. The wheels and rims, this is alias. The background, it's the model from Maya imported into Showcase. Altogether, I think pretty convincing image. Of course, I did that little sketch when the Mars rover Curiosity landed on the Mars, and I was so excited, so I was putting the NASA logo everywhere. If that would happen a couple weeks later, that would be a Red Bull sign and Felix Baumgarten on the door. Yeah, the other guy in my team is really keen on the heavy machinery, trains, so he did this little speed paint. I quite like those things. They're hanging right now in our studio. Backbone frame. This whole concept, because we wanted to put it in a kind of a 21st century context, we have decided to use the electric engines. And we ended up with no 4 engines, but 6 engines. So this whole backbone tube contains 2 engines, 2 little motors that control the twist and torque of the axis. Plus there are 4 hub engines. Plus those arms, they're made out of the material called electropolymer, which changes its flexibility with presence of the electric current, so it behaves as a suspension without the need to have something complex mechanically through the frame. We put that backbone frame into that sculpture just to illustrate how that would work together, and I think it's a pretty appealing image, even without saying that is going to be a car. All right, here's one of the other ideas, the electropolymers. We're actually thinking of being inspired by Gina and one of the dyno wrap-overs over that BMW down there. The possibility of working with the fabrics as a material for the body panels. And that was a brilliant idea because it allows us to combine the aerodynamics factor with the off-road functionality. I would just compare it with kind of a long and short sleeve situation. When you go to the theater, you just go the long sleeve. If you go off-road, you just wrap your sleeve up. And that's exactly how that worked. One of the guys did quick animation in Alias just to illustrate how that could work. Because one of the biggest issues with the SUV design versus the aerodynamics is about the large wheel openings. That's where the wheel travels when the car moves off-road. But on the highway, it catches a lot of air and creates a lot of problems in terms of the aerodynamics. All right, a couple more sketches, a couple more side views. Then here, based on the Maya models, we started to communicate the idea with the Alias motors. We got some ISM guys as well. I just cannot hide that. And that's how we started. But one of my guys got so much impressed about this whole project that he did another movie. I'm going to show it in a minute. I just want to spend half a second on the detail of the rims, playing with the idea that ventilation, the cooling of the hub engines, could be restricting aerodynamic factor as well. So we have decided that even the rims will be a dynamic component that changes over the speed and over the momentality situation, like a city versus the highway mode. So there are little vents they open when you don't need the aerodynamic restrictions in order to cool down the engines. It's quite nice how those designers' ideas, those creative designers, those artists, are influencing the engineering. And we had a couple of the engineers helping us to kind of implement those things, just to not do only science fiction. And they were pretty excited about it. So we might get some of those things implemented on something in the production quite early. So there was another movie that one of my designers did. The beauty of those images is that it doesn't take too long to do that. Dramatic. I've said that it's really the beauty of this movie making is that you get your Mac, you get your PC, and there's a movie maker, I don't know what the names are, and you got a predefined templates. So you just throw in the images, a couple of the animations, it adds the music automatically, it points you through the story, and gives you a chance to put the titles where they should be, and you suddenly, doing the Hollywood stuff. I love that. So, that is the project I wanted to show you. This project was mostly a marketing project to illustrate, to sell the idea of the brand new design department. We have set up the Facebook page called Concept Hansa, where you can see the further development. The time is limited here, and I have 2 more examples for you to share with. So please feel free to visit the Concept Hansa. This screenshot is almost 2 months old, so there's much more right now. I just didn't have time to put everything in this presentation. I didn't want to spend all the time here with you on this particular case. So, design innovation. What's innovative here? Using the M&E products. This is the trend you will see everywhere. The media and entertainment is really influencing not just the way we build and create the things, but also how we communicate those things. And that's very important, because design is mainly about communication. And the communication is a storytelling. Let's go to my second part. And let me just sip a little bit of the water. Well, I have mentioned that we have started to work in July. The studio was slowly set up, but there were already some projects coming in. And this is one of the examples. It's not a car design. It's going to be about product design. And I'm really excited about this one because it's a unique opportunity we were given. I will start in a little bit more academic manner. Is there anyone keen on the visual art? Did anyone study the history of art? No. Okay, so this blue, red, white, black painting is the first abstract painting ever made. It actually started all that Jackson Pollock long time before Jackson Pollock started to work. This is 1912. And it's not a coincidence. This year we celebrate 100 years anniversary of that image. This was painted by someone considers this gentleman being a French, but he was born in Czech Republic. And he made that painting and published it for the first time in November 1912. And there were 2 fine gentlemen, watchmakers, and they have decided to celebrate this occasion with the limited edition of the wristwatches. So, how to celebrate that kind of event in the right context? This company, Prokop and Brosch, it's kind of an interesting company because you can't get the wristwatches below 40,000 euros for them. They're doing limited series, platinum, white gold. What makes them really unique? They're making their own tourbillon. They're making their own engine. Really unique. So, we have set up those 4 key aspects or key attributes we wanted to match, and we have picked some of the examples on the current wristwatching scene. So this is the one of the luxury watches from Piaget. I don't know how to pronounce it properly. But the goal was to express the styling solution and also the manufacturing aspect of it as an expression of the abstract art. So probably something in a way of simplifying the forms. The whole abstract art was going from the real figures, real landscape painting down to abstract art through the simplification of the forms. So this is something what we were trying to achieve as well, simplifying the forms. There's of course a certain luxury associated with the wristwatching generally. I don't like that skull in the middle, but as an example of a craft, this is phenomenal. The treatment of the materials, this is just amazing. We were quite lucky that those watchmakers, they have built a unique tourbillon which doesn't have the central axis for the arms, for the hands, but has actually 3 separated axes. That gives you a different movement of those arms. I'm going to speak about it a little bit later. So that was a really unique possibility to interpret that old painting in the form of the product. And of course, the tourbillon itself, it's a state of art. It's a combination of the beautiful engineering and art. So, what we have done, we started to do some sketching. It was a very limited team. It was basically myself doing the concept research and the theme definition, and one designer / alias modeler who was producing later a lot of models because the communication with the manufacturer wasn't that easy. But what I want to speak about is how we actually went through the whole process of starting sketching something really very abstract, just trying to interpret this whole theme in a way of decoration, which was not the right approach. I was trying to play with the arms, with the hands itself, displaying the way how they're different from normal wristwatches, but it wasn't working. So the more we were thinking about the whole thing, by the way, most of the sketches were done directly when communicating with the watchmakers. So one-to-one meeting and sketching all the time. So we found out that the case locks are probably one of the most important parts of the whole design. And we were looking for the possibility how to differentiate from the rest of the market. So we found out that not having those case locks as a part of the body, as a part of the case, is probably the only way how to put the attention of the potential buyer or the watch lover to that watch. That could make them unique. There were a couple of the ideas we were playing with. We're playing also with the idea of some decorations, grooves, cuts going through the body, but we have discarded them because that would be against the simplification of the forms, one of the key attributes we have, or goals we have set in the initial phase of the project. But then I did this little sketch on the top right, and the watchmaker was really impressed about the simplicity of the shape, really round shape. This is nothing special about it. Later on you will see how we have translated it in the real product. So speaking of the case locks, we have decided that we will listen to the manufacturing guys, because although we are using some NC machinery, this is a white gold, so it's pretty soft. So you can't do too much when you mill those pieces, when you manufacture those things. But we have decided that we can actually mount the case locks to the case back in order to separate it visually from the case itself, to create very sharp angles even in the inner radiuses of the case. This is, by the way, the dial. That's how it looks. I didn't do the dial because the watchmakers, they have their own graphic designer. I couldn't influence that. To me, it's a little bit too Art Deco, but fair enough. That's the way how it is done. So now, Maya again in the game. One afternoon, just quickly forming up basic volumes, putting the texture of the dials, trying to play with the idea of the separated case locks, and that was the result. Quite convincing, photorealistic imagery. Is that the English word? Thank you. I'm just so we have started with the Maya models pretty quickly just to communicate the idea, but because we had to bring those plans into production as quick as possible, we had to give them some data, and the watchmakers working with Rhino. So interestingly, the Maya and Alias, this was so seamless. By the way, I just found out there's a plugin for Alias that exports directly the Rhino data. Just go to the internet, Google it, because it's phenomenal, it's great. It helps very well. No information loss. Well, I've mentioned earlier, I'm a big lover of Alias. Most of the engineering communication and the manufacturing communication happen at the level of Alias design. Cheapest product from the whole Alias family. So without that, we wouldn't be probably able to go that far within that short time frame. The communication was really difficult because we had to make sure that the armband, you call it like that? Yeah? How do you call it? Wristband will fit in between the locks. We will have enough space to wrap the leather around it, because even the leather, the wristband, will be manufactured. It will be handmade. So we had to make sure that there will be enough material around the glass, around the lenses here, because there will be a minimalistic sealing around it. And just remember, this is going to be a white gold, so there's just 1 millimeter thickness at the peak of that case. Quite challenging technologically. Again, the same situation about the wristband. Yeah, the little holes for the screws down there, I wasn't happy, but there was a request. Instead of drilling the holes and creating the elliptical hole, they were preferring kind of a milled out hole coming with the tool coming from the side and removing the material and getting the kind of a rectangular part outside of the case back. I don't like it, but we have changed it, by the way. So this is one of the initial concepts. We have we gave up in the end the groove, the cut, because we found out that the case itself is so minimalistic and so pure in its form that it brings that required value of the luxury and a premium feel. Same, but as you can see on those case locks, we got a really sharp corner. And this is something we wouldn't be able to produce, and no one would be able to produce if you would keep the case locks coming straight out of the main body of the wristwatches. A few more shots. That's the case back, how it will look manufactured. And these are the final visualizations. So what is important here? I cannot show you the final stuff because this is going to be released in 2 days. I didn't have the approval for that. But it will be released in 2 days, and there will be some kind of marketing event happening around it, so I'm pretty sure you won't miss it wherever in the world you are. I'm pretty proud of that, because although there will be only 10 pieces, this whole project laid out the foundation for more massive series of products for the future. The philosophy that came actually from the manufacturing initially has influenced the styling solution. The case locks mounted to the case back became a key attribute of the whole new production line of the wristwatches, which is pretty unique. Again, quite innovative. I'm going to finish with this. 30th of November 2012, 10 pieces, $50,000. Unfortunately, all sold if you're interested in. What? No. You know what? I love wristwatches. I got a couple of the wristwatches I have designed myself, but none of them goes, it's not even far from that level. Just remember the first slide I get about myself, the billionaire? It's one of the items which is not true. All right. The last example. I think I just don't want to. It's like 15 minutes. It's perfect timing. Unlimited creativity. I like this one. And I will go quickly through those things because this should be a kind of a cherry on the cake and should make you laugh. All right. This is something I really love to do. And most of you who knows my work actually is not surprised that I'm showing this again. I'm also doing those stuff. There were a couple of the people asking me if I'm going to give away a calendar this year again. No, I don't have any more calendars. Sorry. I was working as a director this year. But you probably know some of those images. Specifically, this one, which made me proud yesterday during the keynote. 9,000 people have seen my image. Cool. But I did this one as well. It was kind of two guys racing something like I would call redneck Segway. A friend of mine, he used to be by that time designer in Mercedes. Right now he's one of the chief designers in Volkswagen in Germany, in Wolfsburg. He was like, "Hey Mike, I mean, this is like all your science fiction stuff. I mean, you don't need to build it. You just can play in it." Yeah. You know that, the rednecks? You won't do that. I will. So I did. That was my reaction. But of course, I'm not a mechanical engineer. I'm an artist. So I got some wise people around me, and I've asked them for an advice. So my father, 40 years in the industry, his reaction. A friend of mine, a colleague of mine from UK, you've got too much free time. I have one of my friends from our motocross gang. He's like, why would you do that? I mean, no one else is doing that. Why? They are pretty down to earth people. So it's like, and I love the last one. I've got a friend who's really in a top management position. That's his quote. All right. But I have to say, I was able to find a very good advice. So, thank you, TV. I'm not a big fan of this show, but I love the way how they approach building of anything. Just, sharpen your saw, chop it, weld it, and make the bike. So, with no engineering, with no CAD data, we have started to build something. I got a very cheap ATV. These are the TJD tracks. You can get them anywhere around the world. You can mount them on the ATV. That's the Chinese version of the Honda engine with the CV2 built-in 280 cc. It's like, $900, the whole ATV, the engine and everything. We have measured the hard points where to mount the engine. Measured the important parts. We did some ergonomical research. And we started to build it. It's really in the way of, chop, weld, and experiment. No, I will not lie. There were some drawings, some sketches made for the process. We wouldn't be able to do it. There's one of the initial models. Still looks quite Mad Max. Yeah, here goes one free advice. I was quite lucky on on the supporting team. I got the guy who's really intelligent. He's a mechanical engineer, but the welder as well. So really good in crafts, and really technical-minded person. So I was working for Autodesk by the time, so it was really a weekend's project. It took more than weekends then. But I was 2 weeks away, so I left him alone. That's what he did. It's like, I had to put something to protect us, Look at my face. So, but, we need to chop all that metallic stuff because this is like 50 kilos more. I mean, just get rid of it. Tears, it's like, I spent like last 2 weeks putting it all together. And it works. It moves. So I said, show me. It really didn't move well. So, I would say back to the drawing board. So tape drawing, by the way, that's a nice example. There's a fly trying to. Okay. So this is kind of a good example of a tape drawing, how to chop out the pieces. So we have started quite dramatically, and we ended up with even more dramatic chops out. And suddenly, the whole thing became much more controllable. We did some changes also in the weight distribution, but still the whole engine, it was completely wrong. It was really an experiment, the proof of a concept. But it kind of worked. This is one of the final with red painted in my studio. I'd actually built a big door into my studio so I can drive my bike straight to the living room, which is something my wife loves. I'm really losing my ability to speak proper English. My wife loves. All right, and that's one of the final, like a zero prototypes. By the way, as you can see right now, this thing can do like 50 kilometers per hour. And suddenly you have to deal with the momentum of your body. And it suddenly reminds, the feeling of really riding a Segway or snowboard. Because you really have to move your body to balance the whole thing. But it's interestingly drivable, and it's fun to drive it. So I was posting those little, I'm trying to make the wheelie, and I had a discussion with a friend of mine who's having the factory layout booth down there, and it was like, hold my beer, I'll show you. There's a little bit of that attitude, and then that's nothing. So come on, let's go. Let's go to another slide. So I used the 1-to-3D cache to make a little scan of the data. It went very well, but we got the proportion inside the computer, including textures, and it's kind of fun. Now let's go to more serious stuff, because when I was posting those movies, that was really a fun. It suddenly attracted people interested in building it. Meanwhile, I got a patent for it because no one else is building such a vehicle. And through my research, of course, and through my research, I found out that there's a space specifically at the rescue squads or the flooded areas, because this whole thing is designed that we can, the weighting depth is 80 centimeters. That's pretty impressive for such a vehicle. So with the devices like that little trailer or something for snow, you can transport people being injured or unable to move from the places where it's difficult to come with an ATV. It's difficult to come with a snowmobile. It's difficult to come with a large truck. And it's probably impossible to walk there alone because the item you need to carry on, it's too heavy. So suddenly there's a space for such a vehicle. So from that kind of experiment, joke, provocation, suddenly becomes a real product, a real project, with a real interest of the investors. I didn't expect it, by the way. Interestingly, this whole thing, because we were playing in one of the models I'm not showing with the electronic steering. So we found out the way how we can actually chain those vehicles behind each other and let them drive automatically behind each other. So you can have one driver escorting 5 or 6 other devices to the place where no one else wants to go. Of course, the winter is coming. That's quite important right now. Not here in Las Vegas, of course. So I've started to communicate those ideas. There's a little interest, but it's interesting. Once it comes to a mass production, serious, there are doubts. How many pieces, and what's the market? It's like a premium. And then I had an interesting discussion with a Chinese investor, phenomenal gentleman, very intelligent, and phenomenal knowledge from the art history, being in most of, being like 45 years old, just working because for the sake of working, he doesn't need to work. And we were discussing the possibilities, and I was mentioning that it could be a fantastic garden tool, towing all those plows and stuff like that. And his answer was, we are not too much keen on gardening in China. So, okay. So this market is gone. But interestingly, not too much into that kind of a utility type of use. They were more interested in the recreation type of use. And that's quite interesting because he was giving me some analysis, and he was demonstrating that whatever happens with the economy, whatever happens, there are few items, they never go down. Entertainment and recreation. And alcohol, of course. Whatever economy does, whatever crisis is, the entertainment and recreation is always on the same level. Interesting. So I got a task to build in something which will fit into those two products, the ATV and the Segway. There are some numbers over here, 2.5 million pieces sold worldwide. It's not the exact number because no one can track how many Taiwanese, Chinese, Koreans ATVs were produced. No one can really judge it. The Segway, 50,000 pieces sold, not too much. But there's one interesting aspect. It's ecological. There's an electric engine, doesn't produce any exhalations. Yeah, that's the English word. The smoke. Emissions. Thank you. Who said that? Thank you. So there should be something in between those. Let's take the E and let's put it in. And we started with the 2 electric engines, 3.7 kilowatts, which is good enough to make you move fast and safely, of course. We kept the idea of the control unit for each track, for the track itself. That would allow you to build in the vehicles. They have not just 2 tracks, but maybe 2, 4, 6, 8 tracks. And where all the tracks can steer themselves automatically, it will be easy to build such a vehicle. The only thing you just need to put in between is a big battery pack. We found out that the traction here, it's not consuming that much energy as we would expect. So we can go, if you would spend like 48 kilograms of the weight for 36 kilowatt hours, which will give you something like 3 hours of ride in a rough terrain, which is pretty impressive. It's heavy, but the idea is to have as a vehicle for the recreation use that would be liftable by 1 or 2 persons and possible to store in the rear trunk of the car. So I've started with some sketches. I was playing with the idea of the triangular shape of the tracks, where the whole track unit will be autonomous. Is that the English word? Yeah. Yeah. So I used the sketchbook designer here. By the way, the whole thing started with the Alias Plus sketchbook designer sketch. So that's why I'm speaking about it here. And I've used extensively Fusion. Guys, I love that tool. Because designing those little mechanical elements, the track parts, the inside, it was so easy with the Fusion. I would spend too much time doing it in Alias. Of course I could, but the Fusion helped me really to make those things really quickly and put them back in Alias here in Showcase and render the file and product. So here we have the concept which is actually being built, but through our research we find out that we don't need to go to that triangular shape of the tracks. We can actually, well, this is one of the engineering guys. He's using a very ancient version of the AutoCAD. But he's cool with that. He doesn't need anything more. So we found out that we can have a really horizontal solution of the whole track, which will allow us to put all the electricity, including the electronic unit, inside the track. So then the batteries will be only outside. I did some sketches because this is really fresh. And this is the first test on the test belt with that 3.7 kilowatt engine. It's pretty impressive. And go to facebook.com to TruckArt to see more. I love those faces, like, show me more. There is more, there will be more, but we're running out of the time. So I really want to wrap it up. Please visit me on the facebook.com/tracker. You will see much more about this project because this is something that will keep me occupied next year, maybe longer. Depends on money, of course. So to wrap it up, design is a story. There's no doubt about it. If you want to be a good designer, you need to tell a good story. So become a storyteller. That's a good thing always. By the way, I've heard a good quote that wrong decisions make good stories. So don't get inspired by that quote. Design is all about manufacturing. So get inspired by manufacturing because it can bring you to a different level of approaching to a problem solution. And the last thing, design is fun. So go out and play more. Thank you. That's it.